Right, perfect. Hello, everybody. I hope you're all well, doing all right, having a good week. If this is your first time watching this video, I'm Tom. This is Nest Thursday outreach at 5 o'clock, and today we're going to be talking about music, favorite music genre, musical instruments, everything to do with um, music. So, as ever, if you're watching this in the video, skip forward 5 minutes and then we'll start the lesson then, just so for people watching it live there's a chance to get signed in and logged on and watching the video. So if you're watching this on the video, give it 5 minutes, skip forward 5 minutes and then we'll get back to it. But otherwise, if you're going to be watching us live, then hello, nice to see you today. I hope you're doing well. I hope the weather's nice where you are. Yeah, and if you just, like I say, we're going to be talking a bit about music today, music genres, describing music, sort of following on from the little theme of sort of describing things generally. We've had describing food, we've had describing pictures, and today we're going to be doing some stuff about sort of describing music, think about music. So, I mean, I guess if you're watching this live or indeed in the video, and you've not skipped forward, then feel free to put in the comments or in the chat or whatever what your favourite type of music is, what your favourite genre of music is, what your favourite song is, favourite record. I'd be absolutely love to find out. Or indeed, if you play a musical instrument, that I'd be absolutely fascinated to hear about that. Or if there's a particular type of music from your country that you enjoy, then again, I'd love to hear about that. But that just to get you in the frame of mind for today's lesson about music. Hello, if you've just joined us, do feel free to say hello in the chat and put in if you play an instrument or if you've got a favourite song or something. Yeah, today we're going to be talking about music. So yeah, favourite song. I suppose if I've asked all of you if you've got favourite songs and if you play musical instruments, then I'll to answer it myself. I suppose in this quick sort of 5 minute introduction now. Ooh, I suppose I'd have to maybe think about my favourite, favourite song, favourite record. Oh, just love all types of music. I'm gonna get into at the start. I'm gonna be getting into different genres of music, but I think a lot of them. It's gonna be very hard to choose between them for my personal favourite genre. I mean, I do like jazz. I like pop music, but I suppose I have to say disco. It's probably my favourite genre of music. I find it very jolly, and like I say, later on, we're going to be talking about describing music, and I'll be able to hopefully give you the tools for you to be able to describe why your favourite song or your favourite genre of music is your favourite. So you have all the different vocabulary and all the sort of the ideas that you can use to help describe that. So yeah, I'll just give it a couple more minutes. Again, if you're watching this live or indeed as a video, then do put in the comments or in the chat if you've got to play an instrument as well. Yeah, like I said, I'd absolutely love to hear about if any of you play any musical instruments. Absolutely fascinating. So I do a bit of musicy stuff. So I'll play a few instruments later that when we're talking about musical instruments, I'll show you a couple of my personal collection of instruments, and we can maybe just decide which sort of family of instruments that some of them fall into. What time are we on so far? 4 minutes. So I'll just give it another minute before I start with the lesson proper, just in case anyone's joining from the video and has skipped forward. So yeah, I mean, like I say, if you're watching live, then do say hello. Say what your favourite type of music is, favourite song. I'd love to hear it. Yeah, just give another 30 seconds before we get started properly. But yeah, if you just want to be thinking about different types of music you like, then give you a moment to have a ponder that little dilemma if you've got a favourite genre or anything like that, favourite record. There's just so many to choose from. I'm not sure I could possibly ever choose favourite type of music. I see we're about 5 minutes in, so I'll get started with the lesson proper. Now, I've got a little worksheet that we're going to be going through shortly from linguahouse.com. Often, as you'll know, if you watch regularly, then I'll often use some of their lessons. Absolutely fantastic, but this one in particular was about music and different types of instruments and stuff like that. But the first question on the sheet, as I've been getting you to think about in the introduction, if you're watching this live, is favourite sort of genres of music. If you've got a personal preference as to which is your absolute favourite genre, then I'd love to know. But I thought, well, in this sort of video format, it's quite tricky to get a bit of a discussion going about favourite types of music, favourite genres of music. So what I thought I'd do instead is I'd run through some of the most common genres of music, and maybe we could have a think about why you might like them, why you might dislike them, and sort of things that you could do maybe to describe these particular genres before we go in slightly more detail through the worksheets about describing the genres. So I've got a bit of a list here. I just thought we could do it sort of on the fly. Have maybe a brief description of each of the genres and a bit of a thought about why someone might enjoy them and why someone might maybe dislike them. So the first one on this little list I've got, I literally just typed into Google, music genres list, and then this came up, this list, genres of music. Here we are. So thought we could maybe have a go through these and maybe think of a brief description of what they are and why anyone might be particularly fond or dislike this genre of music. So the first one on this little list is jazz. Now, jazz is, I guess, it's a very wide genre, but I suppose most commonly you might think of artists like Miles Davis or John Coltrane or that sort of genre, that sort of area of jazz. But it's the kind of more sort of free-flowing, really complicated, a lot of improvisation. Improvisation is a good word if you're a musician. That means just sort of making it up as you go along. So if you're improvising something, then you're not going along sort of a planned. You're not just reciting something. You're making it up. As you go along. So you might be particularly in jazz, following along sort of a chord sequence and having a play along with that. But that's jazz. I guess one reason that you might like it or dislike it, you could probably describe it as quite a complex, complicated genre. You might actually describe it as avant-garde, which means it's a bit sort of out there, a bit crazy. It's not like pop music, which is generally a bit more simple. It's something that's a bit more sort of unique. Next on the list, we've got rock music. Now, there's all sorts of bands that fall into this category. This is probably one of the most popular genres of maybe the 20th century, and you could probably describe it as intense, quite sort of hardcore. I guess there's a lot of large stuff like the Beatles, for example, but what most probably defines this is the instruments that play it. So you've got the guitar, the bass guitar, the drums, and sort of singers. But rock music, that's that type of any type of music really, predominantly with guitars and singing basically. You might like this music because it can be quite intense, quite energetic, quite lively, quite fun, interesting, and you might dislike it, I suppose, quite loud. If you're not into that. Anyway, next on the list is probably the most popular type of music now, presently, which is hip hop music. I suppose otherwise known as rap, which I guess is like maybe a style of hip hop music, but hip hop, I think, refers generally to sort of more electronic-y, use a lot of sort of funky samples and stuff like that, and generally, there'd be a rapper rapping over it. I know a lot of people really like rap music. I certainly do. hip hop music, I say you could say you enjoy hip hop music because it's fun, it's lively, it's current. You might dislike it again because it's kind of loud. Can be a bit. What's the word I'm thinking of? Oh, even I can't think of it. Again, this is an example. If ever you can't find a word, then don't think that makes you bad at English, because I only speak English. It's my only language, and I often can't think of the word that I'm thinking of. So, always be prepared to make mistakes is my top tip for the day. Anyway, so the next genre of music is the blues, which sort of came before rock music. It's kind of one of the things that rock is based on. Might think of artists like B.B. King or Muddy Waters, and that's kind of more slow. Tends to follow a particular chord progression, and it's sort of, maybe you could say it's a bit sort of sad. It's talking about all the things that are wrong in the world. Absolutely fantastic. Certainly a genre I enjoy. Next on the list, pop music. Now this is a very broad category, I guess. Pop is short for popular, so it's just kind of music that's in the charts. So it kind of refers to anything that, like I say, that's in the charts. But I suppose most commonly think quite simple music, maybe like a boy band, girl band. And you might enjoy it for its simplicity. You might say that it's bad because it's simple, but pop music, just fun, generally quite upbeat, but I suppose not necessarily. Pop music, like I say, short for popular, is stuff that's in the charts. Folk music, folk music, FOLK, is probably the opposite of pop music in the sense that it's really traditional. So it's this sort of stuff that you might get in a country that, like, the farmers might play or something, and it tends to be very specific to sort of each different country and tradition. So that's kind of like old fashioned, basically, sort of historic. Rhythm and blues is next on the list, and this is a genre, again, sort of predates rock and roll. Rhythm and blues, I mean, it's like blues but more rhythmic, I suppose. So I guess it kind of predates rock a bit. You could also call it R&B. That's I don't know, stump me there. Country music. Now I suppose you could say that's maybe kind of folk music, but very specific to America, the United States of America, and it's kind of I'm sure you've heard it, the cowboy hats and the cowboy boots and stuff, and they'll be playing, and it'll sound like cowboy music, and they'll sing about countryside and whatever, tractors and all that type of thing. Heavy metal. Now that is a sort of sub-genre of rock music, and it's kind of way more intense. They've got really distorted electric guitars, and they sort of scream a lot about, all sorts of, the devil or whatever. But I suppose it's not necessarily all like that. Sort of some of the earlier stuff in particular just tends to be really complicated, fiddly guitar riffs. That's heavy metal sort of bands like, I suppose, Led Zeppelin and stuff like that. Soul music. Now that's music, I suppose, it was very popular, particularly in like the 1970s. Traditionally a sort of black genre of music, I suppose, and that's kind of singing from the soul. You'd have saxophones, and it's kind of funky. Soul music, I'd thoroughly recommend you go and check that out. Very kind of upbeat, fun, singing from the soul is what it's come from. Next on the list, punk rock. Now this is bands like Sex Pistols, for example, and refers to kind of an attitude, people that don't really like the government and the system and whatever, and it's just people who've got a guitar and they can play a couple of chords and are really angry about stuff, and it's making a sort of political statement. You might imagine that these punk rock musicians sort of wear safety pins and stuff like that. Certainly recommend go on Google Images and type in punk rock, and I'm sure you'll be interested to see what you find there. So punk rock. See what pictures come up, all with spiky, multicoloured hair and stuff like that. Very good fun. Yeah, I'd thoroughly recommend you go and type in punk rock to Google Images and see what comes up. Next on the list, reggae. Now, this is a type of music from Jamaica, Caribbean, very slow paced. If you like Bob Marley, then that is reggae music. Might say it's very, chilled out, relaxed. That's why a lot of people really love it. Excuse me. So, reggae. Yeah, that's music from Jamaica. Bob Marley. That's reggae music. Classical music. Now, this encompasses a whole host of different types of music, really. But it kind of refers to all music where it's sort of a full orchestra. You've got violins, you've got an orchestra basically playing all these different styles of music. So you might imagine Mozart, Beethoven, or Chopin, anyone along those lines. Classical music refers to that kind of style of, you've got, like I say, violins, cellos, brass, all sorts. The full orchestra. Singing, I guess that's just generally any music that uses singing, which is where you sort of speak with a melody, I suppose. I'm not going to give a demonstration because I really embarrass myself, but I'm sure you all know what singing is. Electronic dance music is the next one, and this is where you make music entirely electronically with the intention of getting people to dance to it. I mean, it's a very self-explanatory, really. Uses all sort of computerized sounds. It is often abbreviated to EDM. So there we are. Funk music. Now, this type of music popularized by people like James Brown, and again, it's a type of music that makes you want to dance. It's really got a strong rhythm, and it makes you get up and check out James Brown. If you've not listened to him ever before, that's the perfect example of funk music, and is a really important basis for a lot of modern music, particularly as we're going to get onto in a couple of sections. My favourite genre of music, which is disco music. Then we've got electronic music, which is again kind of stuff that's made with computers. Popular music, just the full version of pop. Disco, which is, like I say, based really on funk. Just bands like Bee Gees, but also a whole host of people. Earth, Wind and Fire, Chic, absolutely fantastic groups. Thoroughly recommend you go check it out. My absolute favourite genre. So maybe I'm biased in that respect. House music, kind of based on disco, but a combination of disco and house and sort of electronic music. It's a bit more slow paced, but you tend to hear it in nightclubs. You'd hear a lot of house music. Techno, similar, just kind of a subset of electronic music. World music, which is just refers to any music not from sort of the West. So you might have Indian music, Indian classical music is often referred to as world music, but it's just generally stuff that sounds a bit different to what people in places like the United States and England might be familiar with. So I guess you could check out an artist like Ravi Shankar, for example, of that. That's world music, I suppose you could say, is classical music from other countries outside the West, so Africa, India, Asia. Gospel music is the type of thing they often sing in churches in the States again. Really upbeat, lively, singing about how amazing God is. Again, check it out. Really fun genre, upbeat, kind of funky, brilliant. And then there's I'll not carry on because there's a whole host of other genres, sort of sub-genres, but I feel like I've covered probably the main ones there. As we get further into more specific subsets, you've got grunge, opera, ska, drum and bass, prog rock, emo, jungle, all fantastic genres. And I thoroughly recommend that you try listening to different ones and maybe having a think using some of the vocabulary that we're going to be learning about shortly now. about how you would describe all the different types of music you might encounter. So what I would, as a piece of homework, if you've got a spare half an hour in the coming week, what I would absolutely love you to do is go put into Google genres of music list, okay, and then try and find some different genres of music that you're maybe not familiar with. First on the list, I should say, should be disco. But I mean, just check out any of these different genres and just type them into YouTube or whatever, and click on what you find and see if it's something you enjoy, and see if you can think of 3 words that you can use to describe them. So we're going to like I say, get onto this slightly more shortly. But for disco, you can maybe think makes me feel happy, jolly. It's upbeat, it's fun, it's lively, funky. There's a whole host of adjectives that you could use to describe each of these different genres of music. And I really encourage you to try listening to some new music that you've not heard before. And maybe if you've got a little notebook or something, you could maybe put, the title of the genre, title of the album, or whatever, and just put maybe 3 different words that you can use to describe the music and describe how it makes you feel. And I would absolutely love, love, love if you came back to this live stream next week, or in next week's video, or in this week's video, or whatever. Just put it in the comments if you found a new type of music that you absolutely love, and maybe a word that you would use to describe it. That would be absolutely fantastic. Just to get you thinking about different ways to describe different types of music. Now, so I'll just have a drink of tea, and we can get on to the worksheet itself. That was just more of an introduction, really. Different genres of music, and just in response to the worksheet, which asks which are your favourite types of music. Now, where are we? So hopefully that's been interesting, and you've heard a word or of a genre that you've maybe not heard of before. Like I said, I'd love to hear what you have to say about any of these genres of music that you've not heard of before. Maybe in one of these new types of music that you're unfamiliar with, you might discover that it uses a different type of instrument that you've not heard of before. Now, it's very likely, okay, that this new instrument falls into one of a number of categories. Okay, so you've got wind instruments, which are quite often made of sort of wood, and you blow into them. Like, for example, don't want to spoil it really, but I suppose on this list we've got a saxophone or any number of things. Now, a brass instrument, so a wind instrument I don't have an example of, unfortunately, but a brass instrument I do have an example of. This is a trumpet, as you will see on the worksheet itself, and this is a brass instrument. Brass is a type of metal, and you can see that this is made out of brass. Now, what is unique about brass instruments is this thing here, which is called a mouthpiece. Okay, now all brass instruments, as far as I'm aware, have one of these mouthpieces, and unlike a woodwind instrument where you'll just blow into it or blow over it like you would with a flute, with a brass instrument you've got one of these mouthpieces, and be prepared to hear a funny noise. You've got to use the vibrations of your lips to now there we are. That's the noise that when it goes through all of these pipes, is the vibration of the lips. So it's not just by blowing down it. So that's how you identify a brass instrument. It's one with one of those mouthpieces, and it's often made of metal, and you do that noise instead of just noise by blowing down it. Okay, so that's wind instruments, brass instruments. Now next, moving on to string instruments. Now, similarly to how brass instruments are called brass instruments because they're often made of brass, string instruments are often called string instruments because of their use of strings. Okay, so like with a brass instrument, made of brass. String instrument, got lots of strings, so it's quite easy, can be quite easy to identify. And you play a string instrument by strumming the strings like that. You can see that you're strumming the strings either with your finger or a sort of pick, okay, plectrum, like we've got there. Now there are all sorts of different types of string instruments. You've also got classical string instruments like we can see on the list. I'll not spoil those, but you've got ones like this, which is a classical guitar. Alternatively, there are ones like this, which is an electric guitar, which you need to plug in to an amplifier, something which looks a little bit like this, but bigger. Okay, and you need to plug it in really to hear a sound, and that's most pronounced, that's most the case with this next string instrument, which is called, it's another type of guitar, and it is a bass guitar. Now you see with this one, it doesn't sound like, which is from a regular guitar, it sounds really low. It's got 4 thick strings, and that is a bass guitar. Now in rock and roll music, or a lot of types of music, uses the electric guitar and the bass guitar, and they are the string instruments, and it is also likely to use a percussion instrument. So like where we've had with the woodwind instruments, ones that you blow into, brass instruments which you make that noise through, the string instruments which you sort of strum, go across the strings. Percussion instruments are ones which you sort of hit, or you tap or something else. The only example that I've got particularly of a percussion instrument is this, which is a kalimba. And you can see, instead of having strings, it's got these little metal things which you can sort of tap on or ping, or all sorts of that. But that's what a percussion instrument is. It's one which you play by sort of hitting it. So based on those categories, okay, we've got the wind instruments which you blow through, brass instruments where you need a mouthpiece and you go like, the string instruments which you strum or use the strings to play, or a percussion instrument which you maybe hit or tap or whatever. Let's go through these pictures on this worksheet of the different musical instruments and have a think about which category each might fall into. So what have we got so far? So number 1, we've got a drum kit, drums. Now, does that have any strings? No. Does that have a mouthpiece that you blow through? Do you blow onto it? No. Well, then that makes that a percussion instrument. Okay, nice and easy, that one. Now, on to the next one. Number 2, we have a recorder. Now, this one is one that you blow into, but does it have a type of mouthpiece like a brass instrument, and is it made out of metal? No, it's not, and therefore it is a woodwind instrument. Number 3, we've already had one of those in real life. We've got a trumpet, which is of course a brass instrument. Number 4, there is a violin, which, as you can see, probably does fall into the category of string instrument. In fact, it definitely does, but you don't play it with your fingers. Well, you can do, but most commonly it's played with a bow, which you run over the strings like that, and it makes a sort of continuous sound rather than the pluck sound of a guitar. Okie doke. On to the next one. Now, this number 5 is a cello, and this again, like a violin, has strings, therefore it falls into the category of string instrument, but it's a lot bigger. Okay. Also, you play that with a bow, so you have it sat like that, whatever, and you'll run the bow along it like that. Number 6, this gentleman looks to be playing a flute. Now this one's a bit of a tricky one because this one is made out of metal. Okay, but if you remember what we said about the brass instruments, they have that make that sound into them. Now, I'm not sure if you've ever seen anyone play a flute, but they don't play into one of those mouthpieces. and therefore it makes it a woodwind instrument. Similarly, a saxophone, even trickier, okay, because again that's made out of metal and they do blow into a mouthpiece. But like I say, with woodwind instruments, they don't use their lips to vibrate necessarily. They just blow through it rather than making a little mouthpiece sound. And therefore, again, even though it's made of metal and you do blow into a mouthpiece, it is in fact a woodwind instrument. And then number 8, finally, we have a tambourine. Now, similarly, it's not a wind instrument or a brass instrument because you don't blow into it. Now, it doesn't have any strings, and therefore it is a percussion instrument because it's one that you make a sound on by hitting it like that. As you can say, can you add any more? Do you play any musical instruments? I'd be absolutely fascinated to hear if there are any other instruments that you play. Another one I can think of, I've got an example of here, is a keyboard, piano keyboard. I suppose technically that is a regular piano would be a string instrument, but I suppose they tend to fall into their own category anyway, because you've ever seen the inner workings of an actual proper piano rather than this just sort of electronic thing. The sound is made by hitting on the string when you touch the key. But as you can tell, that one there, you've got to play it through the computer, and therefore it doesn't make a sound when you touch it. So I'm not sure what category, probably its own category, I suppose. But there, so that's some different sort of families of musical instrument. I would absolutely love, again, to hear if any of you do indeed play a musical instrument yourself, and what family of instruments that would fall into. Right, okie doke. So on to the next one. So here we are, describing music. Okay, so I'll listen to the music samples, match them to adjectives below. Now, unfortunately, we haven't necessarily got music samples. Oh, actually, maybe find. God, I've completely failed to prepare this. See if I can actually get these samples up, and you can maybe have a listen to them. Open Safari. I'll see if I can play them through my phone, because that is definitely going to give a better example of the different type of emotions that you're going to be hearing. So what have we got here? Music example.
1.
So what do you think about? I mean, I don't know if you can hear this one. I presume you can hear it. So
2.
That was number 1. Oh, this is a different feeling altogether now. Listen to these and have a think about which of the words you might use to describe them.
3.
Right, that's enough of that, I think. So, I'll go through these words and you can maybe have a think about which of the little music samples you thought each one went along with. So if you remember the first one, it was a sort of upbeat song that was played sort of on guitar and stuff. Upbeat means sort of happy, jolly, and that was definitely a word that I would use to describe the first sample. Second one was definitely a lot more melancholic. Oh God, can't even say it. Melancholic, which is a word which just means sort of sad, but I think it's a really fantastic word, and I think I think melancholy for me has it describes more of a feeling of. I think it's very, very difficult to describe the feeling of melancholy, but I think melancholic is more of a feeling that you get when you are listening to a piece of music or something, or reading a poem or a story or something, rather than sad, which I think is a more general one, but that's quite a tricky one. But it's a great word to use to impress your friends or whatever. So instead of saying, "Oh, this piece of music makes you feel a bit sad," say, "Oh, so melancholic, absolutely full of melancholy." Absolutely fantastic word that. And I suppose for that second sample again, you could probably describe it as orchestral because it was played by an orchestra, as classical music, like we talked about before, would be as well. Then that third sample there, I think that was definitely funky. I think that's a prime example of funk music there. Again, that's pretty upbeat. Go on, I suppose. Why don't we play the rest of the samples as well? I hope you can actually hear it. So this is definitely funk music there. Right, what have we got next?
4.
Number 4. What do we think? Oh, probably quite melancholic again. It's definitely in a minor key, I should say that. What other word? Kind of jazzy, I suppose.
5.
Whoa, yeah, that's probably heavy metal. Yeah. It's definitely heavy. There's a lot of sound coming at us all at once.
6.
Oh, that's very jazzy indeed. Very jazzy indeed. So there we are. I think, have we covered all the words? I think we've covered all the words there. So there we are. So that was some jazz music at the end. So, which musical instruments did you hear in these samples? Well, there was all sorts there, wasn't there? I'm sure you could pick out some of the different instruments yourselves. If you want to go back and listen to them. I mean, I hope you could hear it. I maybe should have prepared, some samples beforehand, but slipped my mind. So there we are. So going on to having sort of opinions about music, we've got the little some different sentences here, each of which has an opinion about a song or whatever. So I'll just read through them now, and then we could think which expression describes each of the following songs. So I'll read them out for you. I hope you can see them clearly. I'll just zoom in a little there. Okie doke. So study the options below. I like the new Madonna hit. It has a catchy melody. Okay. No, I'm not sure if any of you listen to Madonna, sort of pop music, definitely. So catchy melody. There we are. Number 2. Their latest single always gets me in an energetic mood. It has a fast tempo. Now, tempo refers to the sort of speed of a song. So a fast tempo is one that goes really quickly, and there's a lot of beats per minute. So a beat is, if you know about music, beats per minute, I'm sure you'll know about it. If not, then feel free to give it a Google. Number 3, I can't stand the new Ricky Martin song. It's very cheesy. Now, what do we think we might mean by cheesy? Number 4, I never get bored of listening to Yesterday by the Beatles. It's a timeless classic. I absolutely agree. Number 5, I used to listen to this song a lot in my childhood. It brings back memories. And number 6, they were playing the song in every bar, cafe, and nightclub. It was a smash hit. Now, which of these expressions do we think describes a song that, number 1, never goes out of fashion? So, number 2, tries too hard to be emotional and is not very original. Number 3, it's very memorable, makes you repeat a tune in your head all the time. 4 is unusually successful and popular everywhere. 5 has an energetic beat, and 6 is nostalgic. Now, nostalgia, if you're not familiar with the idea, is something that makes you feel sad and probably melancholic, I suppose, thinking about the past. So it makes you want to go back to a past time. Makes you think about the past. Okay, so now let's just have a look over the expressions themselves. So it has a catchy melody, it's a fast tempo, it's very cheesy, it's a timeless classic, it brings back memories, and it was a smash hit. So, number 1, it has a catchy melody. Which of the expressions describes a song that has a catchy melody? Which do we think? So catchy refers to something that maybe when you hear the song keeps going around over and over and over and over in your head all the time. So that expression is it's a catchy melody, probably goes along with number 3. It's very memorable and makes you repeat the tune in your head all the time. That's a song that you just absolutely cannot get out of your head, cannot forget, and you'll be humming it or whistling it or whatever all day long. That's a catchy melody. Number 2, it has a fast tempo. Now, like I say, fast tempo refers to a song that moves quite quickly. Therefore, you could probably say number 5, it has an energetic beat. Like I say, tempo refers to beats per minute. So, sort of the beats in a song, it's the number of those that go in a minute. So, if you've got a high number of beats per minute, fast tempo, then that's energetic. But if you've got a low number of beats per minute, a slow tempo, then you can say that it's not energetic. Or another fantastic word like melancholy to describe something that's slow moving, particularly in music. You can maybe say it's lethargic. Lethargic. Now that's an absolutely fantastic word that if you want to impress your pals with a word to describe something that's kind of slow moving, lazy, you could say lethargic. That's a really fantastic word. It's very cheesy. Number 3. Now, do we know what cheesy means? It's something that's a bit sort of tacky, a bit uncool, a bit lame. I think if looking at that list, I would say it probably goes with number 2, tries too hard to be emotional and is not very original. So, like I say, you might think of a song, that's it's sort of uncool, trying too hard, like a rubbishy boy band song or something like that. You can maybe say that's cheesy. So probably the opposite of the next little expression is a timeless classic. Now, if something's not very original, then it's probably not timeless. But a timeless classic means that it never goes out of fashion. Okay, so it's never sort of cool or necessarily uncool. It's just something that is always a fantastic song, and I think you could definitely say that about the Beatles as a prime example of that. Now they make rock music, but I'd say it's very timeless indeed. Never goes out of fashion, and it's always just it's so good that it's impossible to timeless. Okie doke. So it brings back memories. Now, if you remember what I said about the word nostalgic, then that makes you think about a past time. It makes you kind of sad and makes you think about the past. Now, what else is thinking about the past? Memories. So it brings back memories. It's nostalgic. And then finally, they're playing the song in every bar, cafe, and nightclub. It was a smash hit. Okay, that a smash hit is one that is unusually successful and popular everywhere. Okay, so just like it says on there, plays the song everywhere, the cafe, bar, nightclub, plays it on the radio, top of the charts maybe, so a smash hit is just a song that's really popular. Okie doke. So again, talking before about words that you might use to describe these new genres of music that I encourage you to try out. Now, here are some expressions that you might find useful when you are trying to do this, to describe these different genres of music. So, what have we got? So, it makes me feel relaxed, /happy, /excited, /nostalgic, /sad. So, it makes me feel. This is the sort of root of that sentence there, and is a really brilliant start to any sentence where you're talking about music, because music is always trying to make you feel a specific way. So if we use the example of the disco music that I thoroughly recommend you all check out, it's my favourite genre. It makes you feel happy, it makes you feel excited, it's upbeat, positive. I wouldn't want to listen to it, as the next sentence goes, if I was feeling sad. Okay, so it's upbeat, positive. If I was feeling happy, I maybe wouldn't want to listen to, what's sad, anything. Not sure. Can't think of an example. I tend to listen to more upbeat stuff personally. I'd want to. Like I say, music's all about talking about feelings and stuff like that. So, just any type of emotion you can think of. you could use that sentence. I really like the guitar solo slash beat slash bass line slash instrumental part slash background vocals. Now that's pointing out, as we said with the describing an image, you want to try and pick out specific things and try, identify them and focus in on them and then talk about them. So that's a really great thing, again, that you can use when describing music. So you can be listening to a song and thinking, this is great, what is it about this song that is making me really enjoy it? Is it the bass line? Is it the guitar solo? Is it the beat? Got to really try and focus in, and then you can maybe think why you like that. I really like the bass line. It's got a good groove. It's really funky. All these adjectives that are out there for you to use. It's suitable for / ideal for. I suppose if you've got some jazz, you could say that's ideal for maybe a dinner party. If you've got techno music, you could say it's ideal for the nightclub, ideal for a rave. If you've got rock music, it's ideal for listening to in the car. It's perfect to have on when I'm cooking. Doing any number of things. So, like I say, all music is trying to do is trying to conjure up a certain emotion, feeling, and these are all things that sort of try and make you think about that. So it's a really good idea when you're trying to talk about music to think about the emotion that it tries to conjure up in you. Okay, so that's a tip for the day. Now, going on to this little final section for today. So these are music idioms. Okay, so these are things that you might hear in everyday conversation, as I'm sure you're well aware. People, particularly English people, native speakers of English, can often use a lot of idioms and not necessarily say exactly what they mean. I've certainly been accused of this in the past. My girlfriend once told me that I sometimes speak in riddles. So just not necessarily talking exactly about what I mean, and idioms are something that's like that. So they sound like they're talking about music, but sort of aren't. They can be used in context outside of music. So I'll go through these sentences and read them out, and you can maybe think about what each of the underlined sections are referring to. So I'll just go through the little. So, adjustment, boast, change his mind, deal with a difficult situation / accept the unpleasant consequence of your actions, deal with a situation as it develops, is somewhere in my memory but not very clear and very pleasant to hear. So I'll read out these sentences and maybe you can think about which of the underlined idioms goes with which definition. If you've got a note, pen and paper, then you could just do one of it, write the number in the letter. So Mark wanted to quit his job, but after he was offered a higher salary, he changed his tune very quickly. Okay. Number 2, Charlotte hardly studied at all. She'll have to face the music when the exam results are posted. Number 3, we don't have a plan. We'll just have to play it by ear. Number 4, the news that France won the World Cup was music to my ears. This must have been written by someone French. Maybe that'll give you a clue, actually. 5, I can't remember his face, but his name rings a bell. 6, I know you're a successful writer now. There's no need to blow your own trumpet all the time. Number 7, this recipe definitely needs some fine tuning in order to make a delicious cake. So the idioms themselves are: he changed his tune, face the music, play it by ear, music to my ears, rings a bell, blow your own trumpet, and fine tuning. So let's go through these. So he changed his tune. So he wanted to change his job, but he decided not to when he was offered a higher salary. So maybe in this sort of context, instead of saying change his tune, you could say change his mind. So it's just a different way of saying that. And so therefore, 1, C, he changed his mind / changed his tune. So if you ever hear someone like that, it's not meaning they're listening to something different on their in their earphones. So face the music. So in this case, so she's not really studied for exams. When results comes out, she's going to have to face the music. Now, so what do we think? So if you've not studied for exam and you're waiting for the results and you're facing the music, then I think that one goes with so 2D, deal with a difficult situation, or particularly I think accept the unpleasant consequences of your actions. Is what I think face the music refers to. So I think more specifically than just deal with a difficult situation, I think face the music is facing a difficult situation of your own doing. So if you've done something silly, then you'll have to face the music and get the consequences. So number 3, we'll play it by ear. We don't have a plan. What might you do if you don't have a plan? You have to deal with deal with a situation as it develops. Just noticed the time actually, so I'll maybe try and zip through these in case you've got anything planned for the evening. Where was I going? Where was I? Play it by ear. So deal with the situation as it develops. Number 4, music to my ears. So like I said before, must have been a French person that wrote this, because if France winning the World Cup is music to their ears, then it means that it's very pleasant to hear. Okay, so I'd say, I'm English. If England won the World Cup, then that would be music to my ears. Although, certainly in football, I'm not sure that it's going to be happening anytime soon. Rugby, never know. Cricket, the same. Anyway, so that's off topic. Music to my ears means that something is good to hear, pleasant to hear. Number 5, I can't remember his face, but his name rings a bell. That rings a bell. What do we think that might refer to? Bit of a tricky one, this one. I'm not sure you can necessarily guess it if you didn't know it. This one refers to, so it's F. Rings a bell somewhere in my memory, but not very clear. So if someone's name rings a bell, then you maybe think you've heard it before, but you can't necessarily put your finger on it. You can't place it where you know it from. You just kind of know that it's in your mind, somewhere in your memory. Number 6. There's no need to blow your own trumpet. Now, this doesn't refer to this type of trumpet. Blow your own trumpet means that boasting, basically. So it's just talking about all your own achievements all the time, and just talking about how great you are. That's blowing your own trumpet. And then finally, fine tuning is just A. So that's an adjustment. So, with this example, to tune. Oh, actually, it'd be better off even with this guitar. Now, this is what you do to tune it. To get this into the shot, you twist these little dials. So you adjust these little dials. That changes the note. So fine tuning is just making a small adjustment, and that's what the term refers to there. If I can actually find what I'm looking for. And so that's everything for today. Hope you've had something useful. Hope you've learned about a new musical instrument or idiom or new way to describe music. Like I said, I would absolutely encourage you this week to go back to the start of the video if you're watching the video and have a listen to all the different genres of music, or indeed just type into Google a list of music genres. Find a new one that you've never heard before. See if you like it or not. Maybe think why you like it, and if you do or don't like it, then maybe think of 3 words that you could sum up describing it, or say why you do or don't like it. So on that note, I shall leave you all for this week again, as ever. I'll be back at the same time next week. Hopefully you've learnt something new today, and yeah, have a nice evening, have a nice week. It's been a pleasure as ever. Thank you very much indeed. Goodbye.